So we're going to do a little review of the symbol Seiheki. Alright, so just as a reminder, I'm just going to flash the symbol up on the screen for a second so you can take a look at it. Okay, so that's the symbol Seiheki. Alright, so when we talked about this symbol and worked with it in the weekend practical retreat, I always have labels for my symbols to help us remember sort of the root function of what they do. So this one was, I guess, a little bit comical, and that although the label is quite accurate, I call the Seiheki an energetic laxative. Okay, and I always put the descriptor on it that it's an herbal laxative. So it's very gentle, but very powerful. And that's probably one of the best descriptions of the symbol, is that it just sort of helps things move through. So very gently, but very powerfully helps things to move through. Okay, so one of the places that I use this symbol probably the most is when a client is releasing some emotional baggage, if you will, or if there's an emotional blockage, or if we're working on a physical issue that we feel has a strong attachment to an emotion, or when we're working on the physical issue, then we start to feel that emotions start to rise up in them. So that's probably one of the areas that I will use it the most. Okay, so just give you a few examples. So I'm working on a person, and let's say I find often the emotions will start to rise up when we're working in the chakra area, and specifically probably from the sacral up to the throat. Okay, so sacral, solar plexus, heart, and the throat chakra, kind of in that area. That's when I will find that I'll end up using this symbol the most, and that's usually where I find the most emotions starting to come to the surface. Now that's the way it works for me. Okay, it might work differently for you, right? So it's important that you don't get hung up on, well, if this is the way this person uses this symbol, then this is the way it must be used. Okay, so it's important to remember that. Allow yourself to be creative. Try different ways of working with it. All right, so let's say I'm working on a person and I'm working over their solar plexus chakra. So I've kind of got my hands above their solar plexus here, and I'm working away. And remember how I said when we're doing a treatment, we want to keep aware of what's going on around us, what we're feeling, what the room feels like, what our client feels like energetically. And also they'll give us cues as well. So many times I will keep an eye on their face, because I find their face will often give the first indicators that something is happening in their body, sometimes even before they're consciously aware of it. So let's say I'm working on their solar plexus and I'm just feeling for what I feel, and every once in a while I just kind of take a look down at their face, and I see maybe them, like their eyes start to twitch a little bit, or you may even see a slight grimace. Now, I'm not talking about grimace in pain, but just something, and you can tell that something's happening, because usually in a treatment they're very, very relaxed, sometimes even sort of fading in and out of sleep. So their face will be very still. So if something's starting to release and to move through, you'll see it. Like I said, just even a little twitch or just something change. Okay, just kind of a hint there when you're working on a person. So I'm working away in the solar plexus, and maybe I feel something. So I feel my hands light up and they're just flowing really strong, or I heat up, or I can tell that something's going on, right? And so then what I will do is I will use the symbol Seiheki to help move that through. Okay, so when we use the symbol, all we need to do is trigger it. And we could trigger it by, and I wouldn't do this if I was working on a client, by saying it out loud, but we can also say it to ourselves. We can visualize it, right, in our mind. We can draw it with our fingers. So maybe what I would do, I'll just make sure my fingers are in the shot here. So I would actually draw the Seiheki symbol, and then I would float it down into their solar plexus. Okay, or I may draw the Seiheki symbol, and then I would take the symbol and I would just make sure I'm still in the shot here, and just float the symbol out so it flows over maybe a couple of 3 chakras, and then just let it settle into them. Okay, so how you trigger it is pretty much up to you. As I said, each practitioner will often develop their own ways, but as I'm working on it, I will just, usually in my mind, I will just say it, Seiheki, and as I say that, it triggers that effect. Right? So it starts to help things move through and help things move through. Now, that is something that we feel talking about an emotion. So it could be even just a physical pain that you're working on. So let's say there's something in their knee or something like that, and there's an inflammation or that type of thing. So you're working away with them, and maybe use a couple of chakra rays, right, to boost it, right? So the chakra ray symbol, and we kind of boost the energy, and then we'll ask our clients, so how's your knee feeling? And they say, well, you know, the pain has changed, right? It went from this deep ache to not as strong, but it's almost like it's centered in one spot. Okay, so we know things are moving, we know things are working, so then what I may do is and usually if it's a spot like that, a specific spot in a person's body, I will just draw the symbol and then float it right into the knee, in this case here, right? And that will help things move through, okay? Now remember, you can layer your symbols, if you will, okay? So Seiheki, help things move through. Chakra ray, to boost it. What does chakra ray do? It boosts whatever we're doing. So Seiheki is moving those things through. Chakra ray helps to sort of supercharge it. Again, not overwhelm your client, right? Or not force the energy or them into anything. It just helps increase the effectiveness of using the Seiheki symbol. Okay, so that's a few of the areas that I use it with when I'm working on a client. Now the other area that I will use the symbol with, probably just as much as when I'm working on people, as when I'm treating spaces and places and events. Okay, so I'm going to leave that topic only because it's quite a large topic, and we'll have a variety of tutorials and videos on releasing or balancing spaces and places, and then also when we're working consciously, I'm going to say, with a person on releasing emotional traumas and whatnot from their past, we will use that as well, or when we're with a group of people, and we'll talk about that as well. So I'm just going to leave the Seiheki symbol for now, so you have an idea of how it works, and you have a few examples of how you can use it, and then we will speak about the other ways you can use it under the distance healing series of videos, really, because that's a whole, almost a new genre, really, and we'll talk about that there. All right, Seiheki, energetic laxative. Thanks.